Hello and welcome to the back room of the Monkey Museum of Retro Gaming. What I've got here is an Atari 2600, fresh from a winning bid on eBay for a startlingly low price. You can pick these up now for anywhere between 5 and 50 quid, depending on what comes with them. This one was at the lower end of that range. And it came with very little other than the console and the controllers. So I'm going to use this one as an experiment. To see if I can upgrade it a little bit. I'm not the world's best solderer, I have to say. I've had a few years of experience and everything has gone horribly wrong. So the proof is in the pudding. If I can do it, anyone can do it. Now, the 2600 dates from the early to mid 80s, and as such it has coaxial output. This is the PAL version, so it does not, I don't know if you can even see that, it doesn't have the channel selector switch. It's locked to the channel that it came with. Try and change the light there a little bit. So as such, that means that it's difficult to get working with modern equipment. Not an awful lot of stuff has coaxial these days, and those things that do, they tend to assume that what's coming in is a natural feed from an antenna. Single channel stuff like this, it makes it difficult to work. If you've got a couple of things on coax, you have to keep retuning each time. You only have an auto tune, it just makes things ultra difficult unless you've got splitters and joiners and all kinds of stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and bring it a little bit further forward in time, he said, and attach one of these wonderful things. This is a composite mod for the Atari by The Future Was 8-bit. A fantastic little outfit that's not just up the road from me. They do some wonderful stuff. This is the Div MMC Future, which allows you to play lots and lots of games and lots of software on the Spectrum. But the mod comes with handy instructions for all the different things. Now, what this basically does, what this mod will do, is relatively simple. The input to the coaxial modulator is basically just a standard composite input. So you've got positive, negative, you've got video and you've got audio, which is just mixed together and then pushed down the coaxial cable. So basically all you've got to do to turn it back into something component that a normal component device will understand is basically take out all that gubbins that's in between the console and the coaxial port at the back and bypass it. So, with the help of my trusty glue gun, these two wonderful bits, pre-made bits from The Future Was 8-bit, and the cable that comes supplied with the kit, the cable allowing me to connect into the back, this port will replace this port on the back of the console, allowing me to output something a little bit more compatible. Now, for me, the long-term goal of this is going to be to attempt to get this working with more modern equipment. Now, I noticed that a lot of people have been investing in OSSCs and FrameMeisters. OSSCs and FrameMeisters are extremely expensive, and they are absolutely amazing at what they do. But I've got an idea. I have one of these from a long time ago. There's a reason for it, in that I used to travel around, and my wife used to travel around a lot, and she would be in hotels quite a lot, and with nothing to do in the evening. So what I did was I bought one of these, and that allowed her to watch television from pretty much anywhere in the world. So one of the things you'll notice is that it takes a composite input and allows to be output and a bunch of things, including across the TCP/IP, so I can watch it from my PC. So the result is, if I have anything, for example, a laptop or a PC with a screen that has the ability to view the Slingbox website or use the app, I should be able to display this thing on a bigger monitor. That's the theory anyway. So, without further ado, I'm going to try and crack this open and see what we've got inside. Now, the Future Was 8-bit guys are brilliant, and they know that your average person like me is semi-literate with electronics, so they've very handily included instructions for this device. Now, the way that old consoles worked when it comes to inputting the composite output to the modulator and then going to the coaxial was fairly standard. So this particular mod will work with many things. So this particular kit comes with the all variants of the 2600 with code, and it also tells you how to do the Sega Master System and the Atari 7800. But it should work, or there should be very little difference between this and what would work with most other things like the Speccy. So it's just a question of identifying the right place to solder the wires to. So I'm just going to input these. So you're noticing that I'm not using a normal screwdriver, I'm using a Leatherman. Leatherman is quite possibly the best thing on the planet. I've had this Leatherman for decades. It helped me build my first house, and it's helped me do DIY through most of my life. It was a gift from an ex-boss, and it's still working and it's still brilliant. And it's probably, I would say that the Posidrive screwdriver on the Leatherman is one of the best screwdrivers I've got. So we've just got to get the lid off. There we go. There's the lid off. Right, so there we have it, an Atari 2600 on the inside. So, as far as I can tell, it's only held in by two little clips, one in this corner and one in this corner. There we go. And then we can put that to one side. And we've got this ribbon cable here. It looks like this ribbon cable, the sole purpose of that ribbon cable is to operate these two buttons up here. That's a bit brighter. Okay, so this ribbon cable just does these two push buttons up here. So I'll just take that off, leaving us with this. So this is the modulator under this big chunk of tin here, going to the coaxial. So that's what we're going to have to remove. You notice there's a nice chunky cable, so you can plug it straight into that. That on Speccies, that was what was poking out the back of your Spectrum. You didn't have this nice little cable here, so why they moved it to the middle of the box I'm not sure, but for some reason they wanted that area clear, probably because they wanted this corner chamfered. There wasn't enough space left on the back. So there we go. So the entire mod is going to be removing this modulator and a bunch of components which are underneath this metal shield here, and you'll notice that the metal shield is attached to the back by some bits here. Kit. So this is a very handy kit for, oops, most of it's fallen out. Brilliant. There we go. This is a very handy kit for fixing laptop screens, but it's also very handy for doing work on electronics. Metal screwdriver obviously will scrap the PCB, so plastic is best. So there's always one. There we go. So there's the shield off the back, and we've just got to pull the shield off the front, which should be the same. Oh, looks like this one's got just one little tie that's needing a bit of TLC. Or two. No, that one's fairly straight. There we go. And there's one twist here, twist there, twist there. Okay, you don't want to break it because we're going to have to put all this back later on, so trying not to break as many of these twists as I possibly can. There we go. Right, and there we have one Atari 2600. Okay, so you've got the coil here for tuning and stuff, and you've got a transistor there, you've got a bunch of resistors down here, and a few of these are going to have to go. So this, and a few of these resistors is going to have to go. And then what we're going to do is we're going to solder these wires into the circuit. And very handily, Future is 8-bit have provided all the information we need. Now, all of this information is already online, and there's a video showing how to do this, which is brilliant. But we can just have a quick look. So here is the board populated, and here it is unpopulated. So you can see that what's going to happen is that the cables are going to come through here, and we're going to be removing the entire modulator unit. We're going to be removing this coil. We're going to be removing this transistor here. Then we're going to be removing, looks like R48, which is this end resistor, R56, which looks like this resistor, and that should be it. Okay, right then, let's get started. Okay, so I've just moved the camera down a little bit so you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. I have my trusty soldering iron. I've got a temperature controlled soldering iron, which is brilliant and I love it, but I don't think you'd need anything special to do this. I have it set to about 285. 285 degrees C. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by removing the coaxial thing. I've got my handy solder sucker, so we will see what we can do about getting this off. Ah, there we go. Yeah, as I thought, it just needed a bit of pushing. Okay. Right then. So, that's the coaxial cable removed. Now we can move on to the modulator that it was plugged into. So, that's connected by two large chunks of solder there and two small cables here. I can probably just snip those cables there. They're probably not needed for anything. In fact, I'm just looking at the diagram now. No, they're not. So we'll just snip those. There we go. And now I have to remove . we go. Finally, the box comes off. Right. And after all of that, okay, so that's the modulator and the component, the coaxial cable connector off. So now we have to remove this little antenna down here. Okay, so now we just have to remove this little antenna down here. So it should be relatively easy. It's just got these two connectors up here. Oh, that's fairly clean. Let's get a little bit of moisture in here. That looks fairly clean. There we go. There's some heat. And there it goes. Okay, so third piece out. So that's the last of the really big components. After this it comes smaller bits and bobs. So there's an argument for just snipping the resistors off, which is definitely a possibility given my terrible soldering skills, but I think what I'll do is I'll try and lift them out. I'll try and desolder them and lift them out in an ordered way. So here's the instruction. So the black wire ground will go to down this pad here. The red power wire will go to here. The white cable will be going to the bottom of this resistor here, and the yellow cable will be going to the top of resistor 56, which is, by the look of things, this resistor here, next to the one that's marked 51. So we've got to remove this end resistor R48. That has to go. So there we go. If I get a hold of that resistor. Oops. There we go. There we go. There's one side of the... Nope. Not quite. Almost there. I can probably just pull it through now. There we go. One resistor out. Okay, so now we've just got the other resistor to do, which hopefully should be relatively straightforward. Famous last words, of course. Okay, so if we start pulling on this side and apply a little heat on this side, I think the one thing I'll have to remember for the next time I do one of these is to put a light on the other side, because all of my light is on the left hand side, meaning that, but I'm right-handed. There we go. It's just come out. Okay. Other side of the resistor. There we go. We'll just apply a little bit of heat to this side. And there we go. 2 resistors removed. Okay, right. So there's 2 resistors removed, and all we've got left is this. So let's have a look at this, remind ourselves. So we've got R56 removed, R48 removed, and we've got to take off this transistor here. Okay. 2 legs out. And the last leg. One transistor. Alright, so that's the component removal, I think. Just double checking. Resistor, resistor, component, component, component. Okay, so now what we have to do is we have to look at how we're going to mount this. So if you remember, there was the component socket, the coaxial socket there. So this is going to have to go in the same spot up here, like this. I'll have to keep it separate from the base. I'll use a bit of hot glue for that. Raise it up a little bit because the center of the coaxial is a little bit higher up than if it was flat, so we'll raise that up. Then there's a nice long cable here. Now this is carrying analog signal, and having a long wire with an analog signal is basically what they call an antenna, and you'd be broadcasting all this. So once this is attached here, we want the wires to be as short as possible. So we have to route the wires. So they'll obviously, the black wire is going to this pad here. The red wire is going to this here, so they will be quite short. The yellow wire is going to R56, which is here, and the white wire is going to the bottom of R48 down here. So we can basically clip quite a lot of the wire off. So what I'll do is I will attach this to here to give us an idea of how long the wires have to be. And for that I will use my trusty hot glue gun. And I now have quite a lot of hot glue here, so I am just going to stick some hot glue on the bottom of this. Basically this is just to space it from the board. There we go. So I'll let that cool a little bit, and then I'll actually put the glue that will hold it onto the board. So yeah, hot glue gun, probably one of my favourite things. best purchase ever. Great for fixing pretty much everything. Alright, now I'll put the glue on that will hold it to the board. This is going to end up being tugged and pulled a lot, so I'm putting a lot of glue on this, way more than I normally would for a job like this, for a small daughter board. There you go. Gone a bit too overboard, so I will scrape it off this resistor here. Just pack it in down there. No. Not the neatest, but it will do. Okay, so it won't take too long for that to cool down. So that gives us a chance that we can have a look at how this is going to get mounted. So this will fit in here. Now this is one of the great things about this particular mod that came from Future is 8-bit. Normally there's like a little daughter board you've got to solder. So they've got a basic kit, which is a lot cheaper, and you can solder to these pads, and this is basically the circuitry that you need. Whereas I've gone for the slightly more expensive version that has the whole thing all ready to go, and it already has everything's all soldered, and you just have a nice little connector, which is nice and simple to use. So yep, that's pretty solid now. So we can attach this cable, or at least we can pop it in enough that we can see how long the cables have to be. Right, so there. We probably want to keep the cables as short as possible, so I will snip this one here, give myself a little bit of extra cable to work with later. The red cable is going to, so that's the black one done. The red cable is going to this little pot here. So I will give myself a little bit of extra cable to work with. There we go, just a little bit. The yellow is going down to the near side of R56, which is there. So once again, I will give myself just a little bit of extra cable to play with. There we go. And the white is going to the bottom end of R48 down there. So a little bit of extra to play with. There we go. So that's our little fan of cables. And I've got one of these little easy strip things. So all these little bits and bobs that I've got, yeah, the hot glue gun is fantastic, and I use it a lot, but you don't need to use hot glue. I suppose you could tape it on with duct tape. I wouldn't want to, but yeah, the hot glue, definitely the easiest. I mean, look at that, it's pretty solid, and it's attached right now. So we'll just pop this in, just to keep it out of the way, and we will start soldering. So remember, this is the Atari 2600 Junior PAL version that I'm attaching to. So yours, if you have a 2600 or a 7800, it will be different. But for me, I just have to attach to this here, like so. Now, I noticed that this has the wires going underneath, so So if you notice, they go through this hole here, this access hole here, to connect to the underside. But I mean, I've left enough cable to do it. I suppose it keeps it easy. But there we go. So I can put a dab of hot glue underneath if I need to. Just let's just make sure that all of the cables still reach. Yep, that still reaches to there. That still reaches to there. That still reaches to the near side of that one. Yep, and that still reaches to the far side of the other one. Yeah. So I mean, I can follow the exact same thing. Maybe I'll just pop on a dab of hot glue just to keep it down. There we go. I'll just take it over the top. Okay, so let's do the ground first. I'm just going to increase the temperature a little bit. So remember, it's this pad here that they want me to connect it to according to the diagram, which becomes that pad when flipped over. And now the old three-handed problem. How do you hold two things together and solder at the same time? There we go. There's one. Okay, now the other one, according to the diagram, has to connect to this dot here, which becomes this dot, and I should just be able to poke that through. I'm going to need both hands for this, so I'm just going to pop that back in. Just going to push that red wire through. There we go. Not the easiest. I think I might need a little bit more cable to do that. Visible cable. Looks like there's still a little bit of solder in the hole, just stopping it going through. So, this is just a very small Torx screwdriver, just to push the solder through. If I've got anything smaller, maybe this. Yeah, that looks a little bit smaller. Alright, let's give that a try. This one, I can tell this is going to be a lot trickier. and it was not tricky at all. Actually, that went through very, very simply, and it seems to have made a good clean connection on the underside as well, so that's a bonus. Okay, so that just leaves the white and the red. So having learnt my lesson from the red, I think I'll just take a little bit more cable on the yellow, and I'll do a little bit more on the white. There we go. Okay, so according to the white one, we have to take it to the far side, the one that's near the edge of R48, which is this one down here. All of these poor things have taken a bit of a battering, unfortunately, but we need to put the white one into that hole there. Here we go again. So just making sure that we're putting it in the right one. I've watched professionals doing all this kind of stuff, and it never ceases to amaze me how they manage to they make this kind of thing just look absolutely effortless. For me, I'm having extreme difficulty juggling, holding down the board, applying the solder, getting all of the parts lined up. It's not easy. Oh, I think that's done it. I don't know what that's soldered to. I think basically I've just badly surface soldered that. I've not pushed it through. Well, we'll see if it works. And last but not least, we have to put the yellow into the top part of this R56 here, according to the instructions, which is this hole here. So there we go. That's going to go through there. I think the hard part's keeping the strands together in this. I try and apply a little bit of solder to it to keep the strands together, but the moment I push against the hole, the strands come apart. Let's try again. Let's try again. There we go. Okay. Oh, yep, that seems to have... Nope, it didn't do a thing. Bugger. That seems to be a bit less crap. I don't use the word better because I don't think that word applies here. It's less crap, bugger. Shoot. It's always the last one you try and do that causes you the problems. And that looks a bit better. Yeah, I can actually see the wire there. I can't see this white wire here, so I think this one hasn't gone through. I think this is just a surface solder. So what I'll do, try and tidy that up a bit without destroying it. There we go. There we go. You might now be able to see that you can actually see the solder go through. Okay, so that's the mod, as far as I can tell, installed. So I just need to clip the wire in. Oh, it already is. Great. That's it. Right, the connector is in, the wires are in, the soldering is done. Now the question is, will it work? Or have I screwed this wonderful old machine? I'm not best pleased with how much I had to tug all of this lot down here. I think they've escaped unscathed. There's no brakes or anything, but we shall see. Now, what we have to do is put back all of this metalwork. A lot of the metalwork probably doesn't need to be there anymore now, because a lot of it is just to protect the ICs from a lot of the noise from the analog components, and we've just pulled out most of the analog components. But oh well, we'll stick it back anyway. Just twist the ties around. Part of me is saying that I shouldn't bother with this bit just now because I haven't really tested it, but I suspect if it doesn't work, then I've probably killed this, so might as well just do this anyway. There we go. That's the top, and we'll get the bottom on. And I forgot that it's a two-part shield. The two bits actually grip onto each other. That was silly of me. There we go. Right. Aha, there we go. There were some bits up there which weren't meshing properly. Right, try and get this back on as best I can. Connect these in. Oh, nope, that one's still bent over. Go. Connect through, and I think we're good. We are good. Okay, so there we have it. It's all together. The mod is installed. Let's have a look at this. The one thing about this particular unit is that the reset button doesn't work anymore. So I might need to see if I can find someone who can get me a replacement reset. I think I see things moving around underneath. So this bit here looks like it's delaminated, which might be a problem. But so don't expect that to work. But we'll pop this back in. There we go. Stick the base underneath. Oh, the webcam's cable has come off. There we go. And there we go. And we'll put this top back over very, very gently. And if I've measured the hot glue right, when this all goes together, there you go. You can see the cable is going to go straight in down the barrel of that. So that seems to have been done right. Now the only thing when you're putting this back together is these rockers have to fit back onto the switches, and I'll just I don't think there's any way I can really do that on the camera. I'm just going to have to do that over here. Oh, there we go. You just have to look down the edge when you're clipping it together. There we go. Hopefully everything's together. And we put the screws back together. Alright, I've not looked at the clock, but that feels like that took about 25 minutes. Probably a bit more, maybe half an hour or so. I'm very inexperienced at doing this kind of stuff. There's a chap that I know on Twitter, it's Simon Ergan. He does this kind of thing for a living. I think, given that this took me 30 minutes, I think because he's had so much more experience than me, he could probably do this in under 1 minute. No, I'm kidding. It'll probably take him about 2 minutes, maybe 3 max. This really is a very simple mod to do. Obviously I'm saying this prematurely. This could have completely screwed this poor thing over. But we shall see. Okay. Putting in the last cable. There. Unscrew. That's it. Alright, all we need to do now is get this bad boy hooked up and see if it works. Okay, so we've got the sling box switched on, it's connected into the network, we've got it connected in, we've got the Atari plugged into it. I'm using the Slingbox 1.5 software because the 2.0 software is horrible. For this test we will be using Classic, Yar's Revenge. It also happens to be a spare, just in case this whole thing blows up horribly. Okay, let's switch it on, see what happens. Oh, something happened. Oh, we've got something. We have a picture. Okay, what have we got? Let's turn up the brightness a bit. Okay. What do you have connected? Non-controllable device. That's it. Done. Finished. It's crunchy. Not sure. There's a little bit of interference there, probably due to the Slingbox itself. but that's actually working. The mod is actually working, so I'm going to, I'll connect in a controller into port 1. There we go. Right then, let's see if we can get ourselves a game of... There we go. There we go. It actually works. Oh, I got. So it is actually working. I guess the downside to it is that the latency of coming through the Slingbox is too high to play a game. I mean, it's way beyond what the Slingbox was designed for. It's just designed for watching TV, where input lag is not a thing. But I think what we can see is that the composite mod, it works. It's actually working. So there you go. You've watched it right the way from the beginning, right the way through to working. I'm playing Yar's Revenge. All right. I think we can. It works. All right. Thanks very much for watching. Take care. Bye now.